Hello everyone, Connor Whitmore here again with another video for you on the Nawtystep channel, and it's time for the final decade end video on the channel as I look back at the best of the 2010s in bass music. And today I'm going to be giving you my top 50 albums of the last decade. Now, I mentioned in my last video, my top 100 singles or originals of the decade, that it was very difficult to make, and this one was the exact same but for the complete opposite reason. In the former, I think there was almost too much to consider, whereas for this one, there perhaps wasn't enough. It's been a problem with bass music over the last decade and beyond. Albums for forever just haven't been quite on the level of EPs, I think I'd have to say. It's just quite rare in a given year that you get a load of really good albums from the bass music scene. However, the list I've made I really like, 50 really good, and as we move to number 1, exceptional LPs on offer here. Covering anything in bass music, from dubstep to trap, house, drum and bass, glitch hop, neurofunk, whatever. If it's bass music, if it's dark electronic music, it's considered for this video. Couple of things to note here before we get going. I've been finding bass music from around 2010 or so, but only really properly researching it since 2013 or 14, and mostly dubstep as well over that stretch of time. Likely missing out on a few great albums here, having never heard them. In particular, genres like drum and bass in the earlier part of the last decade. My list, I think, is comprehensive, but I'm sure there are more, so any glaring ones that I've missed out, drop them in the comments down below. Each artist or producer can have a maximum of 2 albums here, and can have another as part of a different group or alias. Yep, I'm allowing that. And an album, or the albums here, have to be at least 40 minutes long, with 9 tracks or somewhere around that. And these are albums where, for the most part, they are dark electronic music or bass music. I think there are moments in all of them that are more uplifting, bright and light, if you will. But yeah, for the most part, bass music or dark electronic music means, therefore, that it doesn't include, or I'm not including, albums from producers who'd done a lot of bass up to that point, but whose albums don't actually have that much bass in them. Thinking of people like Porter Robinson or Culprit. I'll be providing clips from number 50 to number 26 with artwork and music, 1 song from each album playing, and then talking for the remaining 25 with music playing underneath that. A playlist in the description with all of them in order. No honourable mentions cause I didn't find there were that many. Not enough to constitute having another list under the main list, if you will. 50 seems to have been the perfect number. And I'm not saying these are the definitive best 50 of the decade in bass music. They're merely my favourites, the ones I've enjoyed most over the course of the 2010s, so remember that before watching, and also be sure to give your thoughts on my list once the video is over, but also drop your favourite bass albums of the decade in the comments down below. I want to hear them all. Quick reminder that I've already done my top singles, EPs and remixes of the decade as well. Yeah, if you are yet to watch them, once we're done here, give them a good look. I shall link them all just here. And so, here we go, my top 50 albums in bass music over the last decade. Starting, of course, with number 50. I shall see you all in a bit.
Live through 95.
It was tender love. Looking back on us, it was tender love.
Dark.
right to the beat going.
Just so you're done. Don't play. Your aim is wasted. I ain't gonna throw to your face, kid. Now you're done.
Back. I hope you enjoyed 50 to 26, and now kicking off the next segment of the video with number 25, and at number 25 we have Breakage with When the Night Comes In. As a development in his style, a maturing of it if you will, from his previous album put out at the very beginning of the decade, I really enjoyed this one and have done more and more as I've listened more and more. I love the underground core of it, but the freshness and modern feel to the delivery ensures it has a spark and star quality to it that I'm not sure we'd seen before from him. Yeah, I think it unleashes his style unlike anything we'd heard prior to it, I think. So yeah, top stuff. At number 24 we have Uprising by Temanite. I've never heard melody and savage bass so expertly combined over 10 tunes or more, and I doubt I ever will again, to be honest. Things that just shouldn't be combined, but which he really makes work in gelling them together. Also, the sheer diversity in the instrumentation, from electric guitar to saxophone, piano, voice box and more, unmatched and unique when it comes to the more gnarly side of dark electronic music. At number 23 we have Magnetic Man with their self-titled album. I've realised more over time there isn't a massive amount here I love, but a big chunk of it I like a lot. Maybe the most important album in the crossover from original and old school forms of bass music to more modern and more recent ones, I think. Important for me also personally as a way of introducing me to where the music I suddenly loved came from, the roots of it all, if you will. Three legends in Scream, Artwork and Benga, whom everyone who follows this channel and watches these videos must be hugely grateful for. At number 22 we have Lands of Delight by Alon Moore. What we get hints of on Long Awaited Journey I think we get in full force here. That's why I prefer Lands of Delight. It goes all in with the heaviness, whereas its predecessor gives us just a glimpse of that festering wall of dark sound which makes Lands of Delight so imposing and impactful. I can't say more about my feelings on this project really. I think it would be higher if it was released earlier and I'd had a bit more of a chance to get used to it more, as with other albums ahead of it here. And if you want more thoughts on it, which is why I said I can't say much more about it, I've said it all already, then I would check out my top albums video of last year, which I put out around a month ago. At number 21 we have Origins by Vacant. Electronic music was, I think, crying out for another burial-like figure to carry the future garage genre into the 2010s in its darkest form, and thank God Vacant stepped up to the plate here, and really I cannot thank him enough for his music. I love it. If you're one to like being moved by music, for it to subsume you, envelop you and make you question everything and bask in a sort of perennial solemnness, then this one is for you. At number 20 we have Split the Atom by Noisia. Easily one of the most renowned albums in modern bass music, featuring some of the undoubted biggest hits from the Dutch trio Machine Gun, Split the Atom of course, Red Heat and later Could This Be. Thing for me that ensures it isn't higher here being that there is quite a lot of ordinary material, a lot of which I think hasn't aged all that well, but enough on the superb front to place it very firmly here. At number 19 we have We Are Barely Alive by Barely Alive. I don't think we as consumers and appreciators of their music could have asked for much more from a debut album, just a really substantial outlay of their sound, and I love it for that. Some of the ideas definitely drag a bit, but more than that, I find it to be a really together, compact showing of what they're best at. Huge, bombastic, yoy-filled brostep, different genres as well. I mean, what's not to like? At number 18, we have Skrillex with Recess, an album I have an interesting relationship with. On the one hand, it accompanied me around the world when it came out on my travels, and so is very special to me, and I find it also to be a great representation of him as a multi-talented producer, artist, musician, whatever, and it also has several really great tunes on it. But on the other hand, there's questionable material throughout here that doesn't quite feel like him. It could have been better, but I still like it a hell of a lot, no doubt. At number 17, we have Deadmau5 with 4x4 equals 12. Far from my favourite from Mr. Zimmerman, but as we know, his Pretty Good is still excellent in the context of bass music generally, as a blend of particular motifs and production quality. A couple of tunes here rank alongside my favourites from him ever, thinking of Some Chords, A City in Florida, Cthulhu Sleeps, Right This Second, coming from probably my favourite EDM artist ever, so yeah, that is saying something. At number 16, we have Excision with Codename X. For me, the last truly good LP we got from him, a solid number of really on point tunes here. In taking the idea and execution into account, I think the track list flows really well also. A couple of tracks here I hardly like at all, but I think they're few enough to ignore in the context of the album as a whole, and as I touched on, he hasn't fully wowed me with an extensive project ever since this one. At number 15, For the Masses by Hadouken. Rave music in its most accessible and approachable form, I think, an absolute goldmine for the rebellious youth in the UK back in the earlier part of the decade. A real animalism and tribalism to it from start to finish, fusing elements of punk and rock with electronic music unlike pretty much anything else I've ever heard. Most of you won't have heard it, and quite frankly, I don't think I'm recommending anything else here more. At number 14, we have Deadmau5 again, this time with album title Goes Here. Not my favourite Deadmau5 album, probably my second favourite ever, but my definite favourite of his from the 2010s. Once again mixing imposing, threatening heaviness with somberness and funk to perfect effect. Before this album, I doubted whether he could keep up the amazing ideas, the really defined production, that sense of voyaging through his music, but he proved me wrong with aplomb. It really is brilliant. At number 13, Maud Fustang with All Eyes on Maud Fustang. Most people, I think, will be like, oh, this is too light, bright, uplifting, etc. to be a dark electronic music album, but listening again, it's very bass driven at heart. A lot of really thick, chunky bass lines pulling it along, giving it flavour, if you will. A real tinge of melancholy to it throughout as well, which brings a bit more darkness. Complextro in full flow for the most part. So many spectacular melodies and infectious drop ideas on show to boot as well. Just so much going for it. At number 12, Universus by Shock One. A whirlwind experience here. So much going on through predominantly drum and bass, but large amounts of dubstep as well. Other genres littered in there too at various points. A lot of really catchy, sticky ideas on offer in the drops in particular. Mostly told through a highly intense, rich, glowing, dark electronic music sound with a decent amount of dreamy musicality in there as well. Another one where there is a lot going for it. At number 11, The Invasion by Destroyed. An example of the music really accurately depicting the image they're trying to create. Couple that with the live setup they had, the costumes, it's just really readily set up as a world for the listener. I think enjoyed it less over time, this one. I've heard a few of them, I think too many times by this point. But still lots of amazing material from a trio we never knew we needed and gave us so much. Very, very deserving of its spot here. Okay, breaking into the top 10, and at number 10, I think it's rare that you get a fully mesmeric, euphoric dark electronic music album, but the only one that's got that approach pretty much completely spot on, front to back, is a certified top 10 for me, and that album is Taurus by Subfocus. This album, it has its fair share of bright, uplifting stuff, quite pop-like in feel, but at the heart of it lies a sense of reflection and sorrow that gives it a very definite dark and nostalgic appeal, a kind of sadness that I think is really welcomed, if you get me. A lot of properly full-on dubstep and drum and bass as well to go with that, and yeah, you have an undeniably tremendous LP, which is exactly what I would call Taurus. At number 9, as beautiful, angelic and blissful as I've heard demonic bass music across the stretch of an album, one of real peaks and troughs, a journey through his wild imagination, that of the producer I'm about to mention, Must Die with Death and Magic. So many brilliant ideas here, plain and simple, the variety of them as well. A special album, I think, in this field really branches out, and for me that is exactly what Death and Magic does. With almost all the songs working well as wholes, the production is so refined, and all the types of delivery we get, from the drawn out and epic to the more direct and purposeful, different moods as well. Yeah, just very impressive as a body of work. Coming in at number 8, we have the most well-measured LP I've heard in bass music. One that takes its time to do what it wants to do, but really hits you clean and hard when needed. That album is Aleph by Gesaffelstein. Aleph is an album that I would like to call a patience tester, which I think it would be for a lot of you guys who perhaps haven't heard it before. We're so used to quick introductions, big drops, etc. But as I mentioned, the layout of this one is just so good, picking the exact right moments to expertly hurt you with and through the music. Different styles as well, from various kinds of mid-tempo to a deep dub, larger than life trap music, acid, synthwave, and if you're looking for a straight up dark, alienating LP, this one is so for you. At number 7, the album that electronic music needed at the time, I vividly remember thinking towards the end of 2014, the last big hurrah from this duo, and one that I adore, and also one which I think is savagely underrated in the canon of modern bass music. Abandoned Ship by Knife Party. When you think about what's come after this LP from them, it could so easily have been awful. The sudden transition into mediocrity could have happened earlier, but thankfully it didn't, and we got a truly outstanding album right here, with one spellbinding knockout song after another. Couple of dips here and there, but some of their outright best stuff here as well, in my opinion. The intro and closing track included. Such compelling ways to open and finish the album. Really good stuff. Experimentation of it as well, it just fires on so many cylinders. At number 6, a particularly special album, as it's the one that I share generally with the biggest range of friends I grew up with. A lot of massive anthem-like tunes here, really taking me aback from front to back. And that album is No More Idols by Chase and Status. No More Idols came around at that golden moment of transition into following bass music more for me. Really heavy stuff, yet delivered with a popular gleam to it, which for me anyway, someone who was used to hearing stuff on the radio, made it very accessible. A real succession of first-class belters here, featuring some fantastic vocals from some of the best in British rap and grime, different emotions on show, and yeah, as a thing, little short of masterful. Coming in at number 5, sometimes you just really appreciate where a certain style has come from, the rawness of the production, the authentic feel of the ideas, a producer really coming into their own at the earliest stage of their career. That producer is Excision, and the album is X-rated. There are just so many bangers here. X's really heavy robotic sound translated into different styles with no sort of filter on them at all. Pure, uninhibited Excision grunge in full flow, without the, in my opinion, overblown approach that we have come to know him for more today. More here, it is properly underground, down-to-earth, rock-infused modern dubstep in its most primal form. One that I feel really set a standard with him and his music, even though his production has gotten better over the albums. I think his ideas have worsened, but in a way you can't blame him because the ideas here are just so good. At number 4, the most impressive experimental album from a predominantly dubstep producer. The first bass album that I played over and over again when it came out, so very, very special to me. Outbreak by Zomboy. Regarding the experimentation, we got a hint of it on his Reanimated EP with his more rounded production in comparison to before with the Dead Symphonic, and Outbreak took that experimentation to the max in what is quite a compelling collection of tunes. We've got electro house, trap, breakbeat and more to go with his usual savage brostep sound that we know and love him for. The range of his production on this LP is, I think, not respected enough. A lot that he goes for here. To my knowledge, in the process of making the album, he lost the entire thing and had to start it all over again, which only adds to it for me being an incredible accomplishment. Just imagine losing a whole album's worth of material, working on it so hard and then having to do it all again from scratch. He also took that leap where few others have in modern dubstep, and for that alone it makes it a special project from a special producer. Coming in at number 3, taking that bronze medal, an album with a lot of good tracks on it, plain and simple. A lot of very good tracks, I hasten to add. Some of the best in my opinion from a legendary trio who have been going for almost 20 years now. They will be disbanding at the end of this year, which is sad, but it gives us a chance to reflect on how much amazing output they have given us over that time. This album included their sophomore and my favourite of the two from them, Noisia with Outer Edges. Yeah, I mean, there is so much excellent material here. One of those where even if the ideas aren't as memorable, the production is sharp and alert enough to carry it through, if you get me. And when you reel off some of the bangers on this LP, whether it's Anomaly, Collider, Vigilantes, Tentacles, Voodoo, The Entangled, and more, you just realise how many iconic ideas are laced through the whole thing. I think there are probably a couple of tunes here I would have taken out just to make it a little more succinct as a project, but at the same time I think it's more difficult to find concepts that don't work here than those that do, which also speaks volumes for how much it excels from start to finish. Such a powerful and imposing album, one I will cherish and love forever. At number 2, when it comes to having an aim with the picture this duo or trio wanted to paint, the scene they wanted to set, I'm not sure they could have done a better job in any way. Yep, in every facet, this album is just so glorious. Welcome Reality by Nero. This otherworldly, futuristic rollercoaster ride of a dubstep album is mile and away the best to come out of the genre that I've ever heard. No two ways about it for me, and absolutely no doubt. No other extensive dubstep project creates a world like Welcome Reality, or has the scope of it, or is as scenic, atmospheric, epic, wide-reaching, gargantuan. The only LP from the genre that has continually taken my breath away and had me marvelling at the time-stopping ability of it, through classics like Me and You, Innocence and Guilt, and the underrated like Scorpions, My Eyes, Doomsday, etc. An album where you just have to sit back and realise, fuck, this was actually made by human beings. The amount of good ideas here across the 1 hour is 100% unparalleled in dubstep. But coming in at number 1, the most complete album I've heard in bass music, with a seriously unfair amount of amazing tracks on it. That's probably the best way I can put it. A theme and story running through them as well. Never a dull moment front to back, start to finish, beginning to end. Extra special in comparison to those that have come before it that I've mentioned already. Immersion by Pendulum. When this album came out, right near the beginning of the decade, I wasn't exploring bass music properly yet, not listening to albums from start to finish. To be honest, I didn't even know that people that made bass music or dark electronic music made albums. So yeah, my appreciation of it was in a very innocent stage, I'll say that. I was hearing one banger at a time from this album, even on the radio, that's how popular it was. Only by 2012 or 13 I realised that they were all part of the same LP, with several more outstanding tunes to go with that. And yeah, my mind was blown. Immersion is just so ambitious, from the different kinds of instrumentation to the moods it encompasses, the wealth of styles and types of delivery across it. No one, I think I could only actually mention the Prodigy here, who have managed to unleash bass music as a band in such an emphatic way like they have. Truly mind-blowing cuts here from Encoder to Watercolor, The Vulture, Island Part 1 and 2, but they're all at least very, very good. Some notably are propelled and elevated more so by Rob's vocal than the instrumental. Not my favourite album from them, that goes to In Silico, yet they were still able to conquer last decade from its inception with Immersion, and to be honest, listening to it again just leaves me so hyped for what they have coming in the next year and decade. I cannot wait. Pendulum, arguably the best band bass music has ever seen. Yep, I don't have many problems in saying that. But there we have it, guys, my top 50 albums in bass music from the 2010s. I hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you for watching all of these decade end videos. That is the end of them now. But now you've heard my top albums list, and I want to hear yours now. What are your favourite albums in bass music over the course of the 2010s? I want to know them all. Drop them in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to give it a big old thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell along the way. My social media accounts are linked in the description box down below. And again, if you want to watch those other decade end videos that I've done, check out the link right here. And lastly, if it's naughty, then you know, guys, so be sure, as always, to keep it naughty and stay safe. The lists are finally over. I will be back on my normal schedule from next week, 3 videos a week, so look forward to that. But here's to more amazing bass albums in the 20s. I hope there are a few more than what we've got, what we got in the last decade, but yeah, sure to be a fair few. And yeah, much love to all. Peace out.